Hi, it's Valerie Timms from South Australia, Timms Real Estate, and I'm here to introduce Jet Xavier. Now, Jet is Australia's leading performance and mindset coach in real estate, and he's kindly offering his time today for everybody just to give us some insights into Jet and what makes him tick. Jet, just to begin, would you mind giving us a bit of an insight into your background and how you got to where you are today?
Yes, certainly can. It's good to see you again, Val.
You
I hope
too.
you're feeling well and you're doing a great job. You're looking fantastic. I've been in coaching for about probably 10 years now. And prior to that, I was in personal fitness, and then I was in youth work and outreach work with young people in Sydney's King's Cross. And so I've had a few different professional outlets that I've used my talents and skills to sort of, I guess, mainly get people to think differently and to sort of act differently. Myself, I've left school when I was 14, left home when I was 14, and was a heroin addict by the time I was 16, in
Wow.
prison at 17. I nearly died. My girlfriend passed away next to me from a heroin overdose. So there was a whole lot of really crazy things happening when I was a teenager. That sort of left me in the wilderness for a long time until I sort of took control of this. And that was what made the difference. And I think, most people are running around wanting change in their life or wanting things to be different or wanting things to get better. But they're focusing too much on outcomes and trying to fix the external practical applications rather than look at the internal drivers and the reasons why they do things. And so my journey has been one of a homeless street kid carrying a sort of shotgun around to someone who talks to millionaire businessmen now about how they think or how they can think differently and how they can then apply that to business. Because if we take real estate, for example, everyone that's in real estate knows how to sell a home. And they know how to list, they know how to get appraisals, they know how to make phone calls, they know how to reduce price, they know how to work with buyers, they know the skills of what to do. The blockages are consistency, discipline, and productivity. And that's all about mindset. It's all about what's driving the behavior. So,
Yeah.
I'm really passionate about working with people and helping them change the way they look at things and change the way they think about things, because I know that makes the biggest, certainly have in life, and certainly I'm continuing to learn and to apply experience myself.
Yeah, we're just getting a little bit of buffering there. I think I love your key
Yep.
story and the fact that you have just so dramatically turned your whole world around. And I think most importantly that you've committed yourself to helping others and helping others win this mindset game as well.
I
It's
think
incredible.
you get to a point. I think you get to a point where you've got to understand, or you've got to ask yourself the question: what's important? What mark do you want to leave on the world? Well, where do you want to spend your time? How do you want to spend it?
Yeah.
We have to work. We have to make money. We have to do things. We've got responsibilities. But deep in our core, fulfillment and meaning it comes from the things that we have passion about, the things that we have purpose. And I guess the journey's been a long one for me to get to the point of letting go of the self and letting go of the ego and trying to surrender to the universal sort of source energy and go, okay, well, what do I want to look back on and think, well, this is what I did with my life. This is what I've tried to do. So I guess the first thing was a commitment to the self to try and be your best version, not perfect, but try and be your best. And then the second thing is to make a difference. I mean, I've got a couple of things that I check myself on every day, and this is what I work with my clients. And everyone has a measure of success that they use, and generally it's a Hollywood measure. It's a big house and lots of money and status, and that's to them success. Well, that's part of success, of course. If you're successful in business, that's success. If you've got money, that's success. But then there's relationships, then there's health, then there's the difference that you make, then there's achieving different things along the way. So I make sure on a day-to-day basis that I work on my health. I make sure on a day-to-day basis I connect with my family. I make sure that I'm taking one step towards my goal. I make sure I'm making a contribution or a difference, and I make sure that I'm having fun. So those 5 things, if I can look back at the end of the day and go, okay, I've done a little bit in each of those areas, hey, I've had a successful day. And I keep it that simple. And I think more people need to define success for themselves, so they don't get caught up in the roller coaster of disappointment, overwhelm, comparison, and, you know, I don't fit in because I don't have this. The reason they're feeling lack is because they haven't really defined what is purpose and passion for themselves, and what the success really means. And I think that's important in these times right at the moment, because, like we said off camera, a lot of people are doing it tough.
Yeah.
But if you don't know what your value proposition is about your existence, if you don't know what you measure your success by, you're always going to be found wanting, you're always going to be found lacking, and you're always going to be disconnected from purpose and passion, which means, as you know, Wayne Dyer talks about, there's no connection to meaning. It's just about ambition rather than meaning, and I think that's important to understand as well.
So what you're really saying, Jet, is like actually finding your reason for life, and you know, understanding that it's more than just material things. Because I think, you know, real estate has always been pegged with this, you know, it's about the car, the flash car and the flash house and the flash suit, you know, and things. But I think, you know, obviously once we get a few years into real estate, you kind of discover that it's a lot of hard work. And if you're not careful, if you don't have your values in alignment, that you can tend to kind of go off the rails a little bit, and you know, health can suffer, and you can wonder why the heck you're doing all of this, and relationships can suffer, and people can really lose their way. So I think it's great that you're helping people realign with that.
Yeah, it's reconnecting, it's re-engaging, it's recalibrating, it's realigning, it's coming back to what means the most to the person and what's important to them, and then go and knock yourself out. Like, get the best car you can get, be as most successful you can be, but make sure it's a holistic approach. Make sure your relationship plans up, and make sure you're still the healthiest you can be. Make sure you're making a contribution. Make sure you're on point, on meaning, and on passion. That's, you know, we've left the old adage of success, and my partner talks about it a lot. She's a coach as well. She talks about this a lot as well. We've left the old, you know, adage that success is just having this. Well, success is holistic now. Success is your spirituality. Success is how you turn up as a human. Success is your mindset. Success is how you treat others. It's multi-dimensional, and I think that's the shift that's happening globally in particular. People are starting to go, hang on a second, success used to be determined as a couple of things that were associated with status and power and wealth, and now we're realizing that success is more holistic and more multidimensional. And when we tap into that realignment, that recalibration, that re-engagement happens, and we're much more fulfilled. And again, it gets back to me. Every single moment we're on this planet, Valerie, we're having an experience. And that experience is determined by our behavior, and that behavior is controllable by our mindset. So we have a choice in that. And whilst some people, you know, in really hard situations, it's hard for them to get out of the situation. Primarily, most of us in the Western world have got it fairly okay. And we have got that choice to make the decision that I want to have a great experience in life, but it's got to be connected to a multidimensional idea of what success is.
So Jet, you coach a lot of agents, right? So, you know, an agent, you know, walks in your door or jumps into your Zoom session. Obviously times have changed a little bit. So an agent jumps into your Zoom session and they've got no beliefs in universal or source energy. You know, they don't really have goals. They don't really know why they're doing what they're doing. Where do you start? Like, how do you start with people?
Good question. So what I do is basically, I just break it down into a couple of points. The result they want to get is within real estate, they want to sell property, or they want to be healthy, or they want a better relationship or something, whatever it is, insert here. So there's a result that they want. There's a task that's associated with that result. So if they do this, then they're going to get that result. Yes, if you make 100 calls a day, you're pretty much going to have a really good business in real estate. So you're going to get that result. So the behavior to do 100 calls a day is underneath the task, and the behavior is discipline, confidence, having optimism, having self-belief. So there's a behavior that drives the task, that gets the result. And so underneath the behavior, there's actually a driver, and that driver is where the change needs to happen if it's not happening for someone. So if someone comes to me, like you said, and they're not performing in the way they want to perform, it's not about trying to get them to do more of the task.
Yeah.
It's not about trying to get them to behave more disciplined, because how many times have you and me tried to be more disciplined with something and we've not done it? How many times have we written another list and we haven't done it? How many times have we said we're going to do this and we haven't done it? We know what to do, but we don't do it. So we know the behavior, but we don't follow the behavior through that's going to execute the task at a higher level that's going to get us the result. So what happens is we loop. We go, that's it, damn it. I'm going to be more disciplined tomorrow. I'm going to make some more calls because that's the task that I need to do, and that'll give me the result. Fire, we're motivated, we lose motivation, we wane, we dwindle, we come back to feeling bad about ourselves.
Yeah.
What I do is I go, what's driving the behavior? So underneath behavior for me is the driver. And if you're not making the calls, or if you're not turning up disciplined, if you're not turning up confident, or if you're not turning up with a lot of self-belief, then there's some driver that's generally in real estate connected to self-worth or self-belief, or rejection, or worry about what people think of them, or abandonment, or acceptance. There's generally a driver under there that's causing them to behave in a way that's not allowing them to execute the task at a high level to give them the result.
Yeah.
So rather than create another list, have another meeting, have another discussion, I try and, like a brain surgeon, get in there and go, well, hang on a second, what are the drivers that are driving your behavior? This behavior that is non-resourceful, this behavior that's not getting you to where you want to be, is being driven by something. Let's find out what that is. And let's say if it is, their self-worth, or their belief in themselves, or if it's their confidence, then we look at that. And underneath drive, if I go deeper, if I'm spending some time with some people, I go deeper, there's and then we can break that down and we can look at that. Something's happened somewhere at some stage where they've given meaning to something. So, for example, I remember when I'd left home, because my mum left when I was 6. So when I left home at 14, I think I was about 15, it was Christmas time. I got kicked out of the place I was living, and I got in touch with my mum and said, can I come over for Christmas Day? And she said no. So that stuck with me forever, because I attached a meaning to it. It wasn't until I got older and understood, and that meaning that I attached to it became a driver, which then infected my behavior, which became self-destructive, and then the task, and then it flows on. So it wasn't until I went back and said, well, hang on a second, that had a profound impact on my life, and that I associated a meaning that I was worth nothing, that I didn't matter to anybody, that I was hopeless and useless. And so I took that meaning and I made it a behavior and I lived it out. And it wasn't until I understood it, first of all, awareness is key in everything. And then secondly, that I started to understand the meaning I attached to that day had a profound impact on my life. And if I just went back to that meaning and just changed it, just reframed it, just flipped it a little bit, that's going to give me a different experience about that. And that's going to allow me to let that go. And so yeah, go on.
Yeah, I was just going to say, it's the stories that we attach to fact that really impact how we behave, or what meaning we attach to a fact.
Correct. Definitely, it's the stories are the thing that I guess paralyze people the most, and because they become part of who they are. They become so innate to how they operate. They become part and parcel of them. It's like a tattoo on their arm, and so they live out those stories. But if we can change the stories, and if we can look at them differently, that's going to change behavior. Once we start changing behavior, then the tasks take care of themselves. But what happens is we just focus too much on trying to change the task. Well, no one's going to change the task if their behavior is being driven by something that's holding them back, sabotaging them, and keeping them paralyzed emotionally, particularly. So,
and therefore,
that's one aspect of what I do.
Yeah, like I'm just going to say, for anyone who's looking for a mindset coach, I think you're going to need to connect with Jet afterwards, because that's fantastic advice. And, you know, so much of real estate training is, you know, here's the numbers, here's your targets, there's the phone, you know, go for it and make it happen. But there's so much more. And you've used the word holistic a number of times. And I love that word, because there's just so much more surrounding what we do.
Well, don't get me wrong. There is a small element of salespeople in real estate that we know neurologically wired different. So we know through neuroscience that their prefrontal cortex is actually wired different. And that's the part of the brain that keeps you driven, keeps you focused, gives you clarity, makes you decisive, makes you less impulsive, makes you not procrastinate. So if you've got that working in your brain for you, then of course you're going to execute. But it's only a small percentage of people that are wired in that way. The rest of us have to try and rewire and catch up, so that part of our brain doesn't allow us to not achieve what we want to achieve. But the great thing about neuroscience these days, and the thing called neuroplasticity, is we can change the way we think, we can change the way the brain's wired. And this is pretty much the only reason I talk about my story, is because how do you go from someone who was a violent criminal to someone who wouldn't hurt a fly, from someone who'd given up hope and was suicidal to someone who's trying to help people grow? Well, I don't do it by becoming any more talented or having a special ability more than anyone else. It's merely because the wiring in my brain changed over a number of years from continually conditioning it in a different way.
Amazing. So, Jet, you've done a really fabulous wellness report, the Revive report. I've implemented that into my business. I have a health and wellbeing program. You know, I was part of the Adelaide side of things, and I think it's just such a great initiative. Do you just want to maybe give us a brief insight into what that Revive report is about and what it's highlighted?
Yeah, so a lot of people, particularly principals, come to me and say, "Hey, look, Jet, I'm riding over 1 million myself. I've got 10 staff, got 5, blah, blah, whatever the story is. But I'm not happy. My relationship sucks. My health's bad. You know, one guy was hospitalised twice. Another principal, who's top number one in one of the biggest brands in Australia, suffered from severe anxiety." So this kept occurring, and I'm thinking, well, I can help these people with my coaching, but what's actually going on in the industry? You know, in a broader sense, what's happening, and where's the information, and who's doing something about it? And I found that nothing was really happening at all. So I started to research around wellness and wellbeing in the industry in 2017. We did the roundtables, which you were part of and had input into, you know, across a number of states. We ran the Revive 2-day project 2 years in a row, and we brought out 2 white papers. And basically we found, you know, just confirmed what we pretty much knew, that, you know, nearly 60% of the industry were constantly stressed, suffering from physical symptoms of anxiety, going to the doctor from anxiety, not healthy, bad relationships. And so it was like, well, okay, well, here's 3 years of, you know, research and data. We had over 1,000 people reply to both studies, surveys. Here's some good data to start having the conversation about what the hell is going on in real estate. Because real estate has always been, here's your phone, here's your desk, get out there and do it, or you're not going to be successful. No support. And all I was looking for were the chest beaters that could just sort of, you know, keep going. And what we've realized is that post-war hard work, grind yourself into the ground type of approach is really not successful in the long term. And there's plenty of research out now showing that. There's plenty of great books out. Powerful Engagement's a great book about that. And so basically, I wanted to get the conversation started. I wanted to get it onto the agenda, and I wanted to sort of let's see how we could make a difference in the industry, because there are a lot of good people, good agents that were suffering. And these were top agents. We're not talking about people that were, you know, making 50 grand a year and being depressed. We're talking about some of the best agents in Australia who were suffering and had no one to talk to, couldn't do anything about it because there was a whole stereotype of, you know, you can't talk about it because it's weak. You can't show your weakness. all that type of stuff. And so it was about getting the message out there, getting the conversation going, breaking some stereotypes, and ideally getting people like yourself at the high leadership level across Australia involved to do stuff. And so subsequently, you know, like you said, you've implemented stuff, and John Cunningham has done stuff.
Yeah.
And then you've got Rise, which is the app that's they're going to release around Australia, the mental health app. So there's a lot of stuff that's sort of come out of the conversations and being on the agenda. And there's a lot of change in the industry. I'm talking to principals all around Australia all the time. And wellness and well-being is being started to being taken seriously, because we know that healthier employees, higher retention, they're more productive, they're more profitable, all that sort of stuff. So we're starting to win the war. So it's exciting. It's still, I mean, COVID slowed the message down a little bit because, you know, Rise was supposed to happen a couple of months ago. I think it's on in November again, hopefully. But certainly the message is being heard by, you know, people like yourself who are actually doing something about it. And the more that happens, the more it's going to be put on the agenda.
Yep.
And the more we're going to create an environment where good people are not going to get swallowed up and lost.
Yeah.
You know, we're going to create an environment where people are going to be heard, supported, encouraged.
Yeah.
Now, in saying that, real estate's not for everyone, of course, and it can be a tough game, and you need to be made of the right stuff. And I get all that, but that's like anything in life. But we can no longer just sit back and let good people kill themselves in real estate, which happens. We have suicides in real estate. We can no longer sit back and allow people to feel like they have to suffer in silence and have nowhere to talk, no one to go to, because they'll be called weak. We can't sit back anymore and allow this to happen. We should be leading industries, not following industries. We should be, we're a massive, real estate is a massive industry. We should be setting the standards, not following the standards. And so, you know, I'm passionate about it, I'm excited about it, and I think, you know, what's being started and what's being championed, like I said, by people like yourself, is going to grow into a great movement that's going to help a lot of people in the industry.
Yeah, great. And Jet, you know, I've watched you on social media the last couple of years. You were fit before, you've got super fit now. You're saying on your socials that you've lost 17 kilos. You've found your twin flame. You know, tell us what's going on. What's made the change? What are you doing differently?
People look at coaches and think, well, that guy's got it together. Well, coaches probably haven't got it together as much as people think. It's the same with principals. You know, people see someone that has a level of success and they think, oh, that person's got it together. So for me, you know, in 2017, I was living in Sydney, and it had a beautiful unit overlooking the Harbour Bridge and the Opera House, and you know, I thought I was doing okay, and business was trundling along there, and but basically, really, long story short, I was living a lie. Business was really average. I wasn't passionate. I wasn't motivated. I wasn't drive. I just lost my drive. I'd lost my soul. I was 17 kilos overweight. I was binge drinking. I wasn't being the father that my kids needed. I'd been in a relationship at that stage for 9 years, and I really wasn't turning up as the man that I should have been turning up as. So I was, you know, complacent and taking things for granted. I racked up major debt through irresponsibility. So there was all these things that were happening that I just didn't want to face, because, you know, good got in the way of great, and I'd accepted it and I tolerated it. And it sort of got to the point where I thought, well, I'm going to go down this path and I'm just going to waste the majority of the rest of my life if I keep going like this, or I'm going to do something different.
Yeah.
And so basically I just did a total 180. I you know, faced up to the fact that I wasn't being open in the relationship and turning out the way I should. And so finished that relationship, sold everything that I had. I just said, that's it. I'm just going to sell everything, my car and a beautiful Harley. You know, a lot of nice things, just sold the whole thing. Moved to the Gold Coast, 1,000 kilometres away, just in a four-wheel drive that I hired with a guitar, shooter, and a bags of clothes.
Wow.
Started to reach out to my kids, and got on a health kick. Went to AA for a couple of months to get my head back in the game and just really get a It just took responsibility. Just said, look, you're either going to be this type of person or you're going to aim up and be authentic and take that road. And so, and got out of debt, ended up tripling the business in the couple of years after that as well.
Wow.
And then, connected back to passion, purpose and fulfillment. And my partner, who I have met now, I was her trainer probably 12, 13 years ago in Sydney. Anyway, she was on the Gold Coast and we reconnected, and over a year and a half, just got to know each other a bit better, and, decided to ask her to be my co-creator in India on the Ganges River at sunrise in Varanasi. And so
beautiful.
The relationship sort of came forward back. Yeah, it's a great thing. It was a day-to-day proposition, and she says if I don't turn up, then get out. So she's pretty straightforward.
Really, that's great.
Yeah, you're on notice every day, but sometimes it's important to know where you stand. But anyway, I've got no complaints, and I think at some stage you have to draw a line in the sand and say, look, I'm going to be fair dinkum about being honest with myself. Yeah. Not perfect, just honest with myself. Where am I lying to myself? Where am I bullshitting myself? Where am I not stepping up? Where am I not turning up? I'm reconnected back with my kids, and like I said, I'm heading to Sydney to do something with my daughter to support her, and I'm fitter than I've ever been. Lost to 17 kilos.
Amazing.
And I just think in your life when things have changed, there's been a decision, and you've made the decision, and you've backed yourself, and you've gone, I don't know what's going to happen. I've got no preconceived ideas or expectations. I'm just going to follow this intuitive gut feeling that I have, and I'm just going to head this way. And so far everything's worked out really beautifully, and I'm almost scared to get up in the morning sometimes because it's been so good.
That's amazing.
So, well, this is fantastic. Yeah. So I'm really, really happy, but I'm also proud of the fact that, when I was pushed to the wall because of my own irresponsibility, that I made a decision and I said, look, I'm going to do something different. I'm going to go the other way. I'm going to be authentic, because I wasn't being authentic, and a lot of us aren't. A lot of us are lying to ourselves, whether it's in work, in our relationship with our health, finances, or whatever. We're not telling the truth. And as soon as that starts happening, then we compromise and we lose a piece of our soul, I think, and we become, just so complacent that our experience is, lesser than we deserve. I mean, we deserve the best experience ever. Look at this planet. Look where we are. We need to be enjoying it. So
I can see the planet behind you. I can see.
I'm social distancing still.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Yes. So it's been interesting.
I love your story, and I love your refreshing honesty. So many of us put on masks, right? And just go day to day. I loved your comment about saying, there's so many coaches and principals who, appear to have it all together on the outside, but there's stuff going on behind the scenes. And I get that. I've made some decisions in the last sort of year and a half within my life because I wasn't moving on a path that was congruent for me. So, big changes. But I think, what you're saying about being in alignment is just so critical, because if something feels wrong and your gut's telling you it's wrong, it's wrong, and it's going to affect every part of your life. And it's okay to have good, but if you can have awesome, why not have awesome? Yeah.
I think congruent. I love that word, congruent. I mean, I think, I don't want to get too esoteric here, but you just get one shot. And if you think about the fact that where we are in the cosmos, and the fact that we don't know what the hell's going on here, we've got no idea, right? You better make the best of this thing. You better do everything you can to make the best of it. And that for me, that's an experiential existence. It's not a gathering things existence. It's not a having stuff existence. I want the stuff. I'm the first to put my hand up. I love it, but I've learned is my experience on a day-to-day basis is the reality. And if that experience on a day-to-day basis is not congruent, as you say, doesn't have authenticity to it, is not challenging me. I mean, my partner, I think I love about her the most. She says, I don't need you, Jet. I choose you. Like, what?
Love it.
and,
Yeah.
and so, you know,
That's
at
classic
first it was like,
independence. Yeah.
at first I was like, what? What's going on here? Because I was still lost in the Hollywood idea of love and not understanding the power of, like you said, the power of two independent people coming together and making a decision to create something absolutely freaking awesome. I was still stuck in the codependent framework. And so, you know, for me, that day-to-day experience of being with someone like that, or the day-to-day experience of being able to share with somebody like you, or the day-to-day experience of looking at myself and saying, man, you continue to get closer to even better health and better fitness and better mental well-being. I mean,
Yeah.
that's an experience that you're creating on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah.
And again, back to what we said at the start, you know, it wraps up the whole success paradigm around holistic, multidimensional success, which I think is important to understand. And once we understand that, it takes the pressure off, because what we're not searching for now is the holy grail of something so special. And you would know yourself, when I've had many great agents call me once they've hit their magic million or 500 or whatever their goal is, and they go, well, it wasn't as big a deal as I thought it was.
Yeah.
I mean, it was great and it's going to help and it'll do all the fantastic things, but their experience of that thing which they place as the ultimate success is not satisfying. It's like Sam Harris talks about, happiness in our society is the reiteration of pleasure. That's what it is. And that's going to be something that makes us keep chasing. We'll never get there.
Yeah.
So at some stage we have to stop and go, hang on a second, what is the experience I want today? And that experience is built on the back of the congruency and the authenticity and being connected to meaning.
Great. And so, Jet, what I'd love to finish on for our listeners is if someone's feeling a bit off track, what are 3 things they can do immediately to get themselves back into alignment and back on track and focused?
I think the first thing is that, you know, don't sweat the small stuff. I think that's the biggest thing that people can do. I mean, Eckhart Tolle says most of our anxiety and nervousness and depression comes from the fact that we're either chasing something in the future or we're stuck in something in the past, but we're never in the present. And most of the stuff we stress about that causes anxiety and depression and puts us off our game, let's say, or out of alignment, is due to the fact that we're not here in the present. We're in the future or in the past. So the first thing is don't sweat the small stuff. Understand that shit is going to happen, and it's how you deal with it that matters. Yeah. That's really important, because if we're always connected to the charge, as they say, then the charge is always going to control us. The second thing is, which is a bit of a, you know, it's a bit of a cliche these days, is the whole thing around gratitude. You know, when you link yourself to gratitude, all of a sudden, and there's so many exercises that you can do, but if you just do a simple gratitude exercise about what are you grateful for, when you think about what you're grateful for and say it's my family, the things that you are pissing you off or you are not there anymore. Yeah, because you're thinking about what's important now, and that will switch through a really powerful bridge to cross. So there's an exercise that you can do that's like this. You can put fingers that way, and then you can open it.
Sorry, we're just losing you a bit there.
I'm constantly doing that.
Sorry, we just
so can you see me doing this exercise with my hand?
No.
Okay, where'd you lose me on that?
Okay.
Can you see me now?
You're starting to move again now. Yep. Okay, great.
All right. So there's a simple exercise. If you clasp your hands like that, open them, and then go the other way. Yep. And if you keep doing that and just concentrating on trying to do that so your hands don't get mixed up, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, tell me what you're thinking about right now.
I'm trying to make sure I get it right.
Trying to make sure you're right. Where are your problems right now?
I don't know.
Well, no, not there. They're not there. Have they gone away? You can go back to them right now. You can think, today I've got to do this shit. I've got to follow that property management thing. Shit, that's going to happen. But that's business life. That's not going to change, right? But your response to it is. So this gratitude exercise is just a simple disassociation exercise that gets me to switch off the part of my mind that's stuck. Yeah. Now I can add to that I'm grateful about my family or my health. As soon as I do that, I take myself away from ruminating, on the thing that's causing the anxiety and stress, and I just get into a world that's free, a world that doesn't have any connection to that. Yeah. So that's the second thing. One more thing is this. And this is a big, big, big one for me. And we talked about it, you mentioned before, around stories and meaning, yeah?
Yeah.
What meaning we give to something creates the experience we have of something. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Viktor Frankl talks about this in his book, Man's Search for Meaning. Yep. You know, in that space between stimulus and response, there's a decision. Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's a stimulus and there's a response that I have. But in between that, there's this space where I make a decision on how I'm going to respond. And his whole work was about why can some people be in a Holocaust camp and not give up and have an optimism that they're going to be saved, and why do others become despondent and pessimistic and suicidal? Yeah. Because they created a different meaning. Now that's hard from someone it's hard for people to swallow. But if you think about it, the Holocaust camps, worst place on earth, there were people sitting there giving different meaning to that experience. Yeah. And so that's, I think, one of the most powerful things, because a lot of the stuff that holds us back, a lot of the stuff we think about ourselves is because we've attributed certain meaning to it. We've attached a certain meaning to it. I'll give you a quick example. I had a client who'd go back to their family for Christmas all the time, but it'd just be a big fight. She'd hate it. It was horrible. It was just the worst. And she didn't want to go back this year. And I said, tell me about what happens when you go back. She said, well, I think this and I feel that. And people say this. And I said, well, what if you thought about it different and attached a different meaning to it? Yeah. And so we worked through the process and she did that. She went back, she said, that's the best Christmas I've ever had. All she did was just shift the meaning that she'd attached to it. She just shifted the meaning. And when she shifted the meaning, what did she shift? She shifted the emotion. When she shifted the emotion, she shifted the thought. At one point when she had a meaning that was negative, she was being controlled. The other point when she shifted it and gave it new meaning, she was now in. Yep. It's the same if we lose a listing. Generally, we feel down on ourselves. I didn't do the right thing. It's usually a competitor, blah, 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 blah. Meaning. Instead of going, okay, what can I learn from that? What could have I done better? What's next? What's the next step I need to take to get towards the next thing? This doesn't mean that I'm hopeless. This doesn't mean a reflection on me being a bad person. The meaning we attach to something has power. Absolutely. So there's three things that people can do.
Awesome. So
and here's the cool thing that people don't understand. Your brain is responding to these things. Yeah. So it's not just a thought process you're going. The neurons in your brain are actually responding. And when they start responding, that starts shifting behavior. And when you start shifting behavior, that's when the change happens.
That's great. So don't sweat the small stuff, have gratitude and realign the story that you're attaching to facts.
Yeah. Recreate the meaning. Give it different meaning. Yep, definitely.
Amazing. Jet, it has just been so incredible chatting with you today, and I know that our listeners are just going to get so much out of our session. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your generosity. And is there anything you want to finish on?
No, it's been great to be on. Great to see you again. People want to reach out, they can just go on to Insta or Facebook, Jet Xavier, and happy to answer any questions. If people want to chat about anything, just reach out for sure.
Excellent. So Jet, Australia's leading mindset specialist coach in real estate. So feel free to connect with him soon.
Thank you.
Have a great day, Jet. Cheers. Bye.